The moose manure is something that, you know, so you got a bag and you see a good stack of briquettes here, you make sure you've got enough every time, you know, because you've got to always gather it when you find it, because it's not going to be there when you want it. Yeah. So that's a Polish tradition. They will always have this sack and keep it, you know, as much as they needed and found in there. And cow manure and horse manure, I think, were considered to be you know, quite a bit more. And bog rosemary has one very specific use. It is the best means to commit suicide. So you make a good tea specifically to commit suicide with bog rosemary. And the native people know that it's going to be the least painful way to go about it. So you got to make sure that that impersonator is understood and you don't mistake one for the other. And then bunchberry is a dogwood. In Ontario, they call it Cornell. And there's a university called Cornell, because it's probably named after the herbaceous dogwood. And it's called herbaceous dogwood because it's not woody. And the woody ones, of which the floral emblem of British Columbia is the flowering dogwood, and there's many. So maybe all the dogwoods are the same. Now, red osier dogwood is the northern. So where we live, we have two: the herbaceous one and the red osier dogwood. Well, the inner bark of the dogwood there is used for killing pain, and to the native people, that kinnikinnick that you made from the inner bark of red osier dogwood would pleurisy, tuberculosis. Anytime you got something connected with your lungs that's painful, you could use it and smoke it and the pain go away. And to the native people, they didn't stop and think and say, the pain comes back. As long as you smoke it, the pain, it's not a cure. It just deals with the pain. So it's highly esteemed. And an old native person said, you know, if you were going about the ceremonial aspect in smoking the pipe in the ceremonies they have, you would use red osier dogwood. You wouldn't use nicotine. He would say you use specifically red osier dogwood because of the healing connotation. So the people who share the pipe are trying to do something about the relationship to make it better. That issue, and nicotine doesn't do that, I think. But they transferred to nicotine. So it's another one of the kinnikinnicks that holds the ember. This ember, to hold an ember in a pipe, it's not a given. It's a very special property. So you can't, if you have to smoke something that won't hold an ember, you mix it. And the ideal ember mixer is what we call the true tinder fungus, the chaga. You'd mix that up, and it's so benign. You know that the smoke from peat, like the heat in Ireland and so on, actually soothes many asthmatics. It relieves their asthma, where smoke normally exacerbates asthma, and so on. But anyway, the bunchberry is prescribed by the Iroquois. It's always mentioned. The Iroquois said the best thing you could take for cancer. So this Canadian scientist working in cancer research, he was following out the plants that the native people recommended for cancer. So he studied this plant, and what he said he knew of no plant in existence, wild or domestic, that stimulated endorphins like smoking bunchberry tobacco or making the tea. I use the tea. Well, to tell you the truth, I'm not exactly sure if smoking it probably is used, but I know red osier dogwood inner bark is, but I don't know about bunchberry leaves. But anyway, I make this tea, and it's the most relaxing. It's just you know, you go on a long walk. We go on these walks for 10 days, and the students are really not restricted, but we have a lot of discussion about what you're trying to prove on this 10-day walk. First of all, we walk in the part of the summer that you don't need a sleeping bag for sure. And next of all, we do it during the raspberry season, where if you ate every raspberry you see, you won't get hungry. And not only will you achieve that, but the seeds, they go through your system. And I think they tickle and scrub your your colon and everything else, and you don't have to be very careful where you go, because you could go in the middle of the road and people will mistake it for bear poo.
That's when you know you've been out long enough.
And since we're going to go further about poo, I had a walk once where that particular year the berries were particularly prolific, more so than I'd really seen before. I heard in Sweden or Scandinavia, they have this berry soup where they collect many berries and then they boil it, and it's called a soup. I assume it's a dessert. Well, it most certainly is not sweet, I'll tell you. So I probably had a dozen different berries. When I thought I had a good meal, I put them all in the can and simmered them until the juice came out and cooked them so that they would be a little more. Well, when I ate those berries, within, I am sure, 20 minutes, it was less than half an hour, they were back on the moss again. They went through my system as, 22 feet of gut in 20 minutes, I'll tell you. So as a purgative, there you have it. You've got a very, oh boy, I'll tell you, was that desperate. What's that?
That was raspberry?
No, there was no raspberries in that. There was, and some of the berries were not ripe because I used the lingonberries, the Saskatoons. There are many berries. I'd have to stop and think, but they were all sort of ready, but not fully ripe at all. So that when they were cooked, they were pretty sour, in a way, and that sourness. I'm an amateur doctor in many respects. I don't mind if you call me doctor. I have a brother that's a doctor. Sometimes he might sign for things. I'll write an article inside of since he's an MD. But there's two things I'm arrogant about that I figure I'm a better authority than a doctor on. Number one, boils. I had so many boils in my life that I never met a doctor that knew more about boils than I did. Number two, how to handle a cut in the forest. Like I would always feel that if a student got a cut beyond 8 stitches in the correct context, because there's certain places you cut a ligament or so, and we're way off in the boonies, and we don't want people to cut themselves and abort our program and have to go and get medical attention and stuff like that. So we're trying to be very careful. So we tell students, if it doesn't compromise your ability on your hand, once I had a cut which cut all the, and that was in a classroom downtown on campus where a guy is looking at a knife and the guy next to him swings his hand and cuts all the ligaments. That's the worst accident I ever saw in my whole career. But people will get cuts. And if you're a Polish bush person, you handle cuts easy, guaranteed easy, 8 cuts. That's valuable knowledge. 8 stitches for sure. Beyond that, well, we're not sure. Maybe we say, it's up to you. You make the decision. But anyway, cuts, because all the doctors I get on courses, I would say, oh, Marco, that's overdoing it, stitching in the field like that. And then now with steri strips and all that. And you find that once you get smart and know how to conduct yourself, you hardly have a cut because you set it up that way. And if you don't set it up that way, you got 30 students, everyone cuts themselves once. Half cuts themselves twice. A quarter cut themselves 3 times. And there's one individual that cuts themselves so often ignores even, just shakes their blood off and just keeps on going. They know that it'll take care of itself. And knife cuts, they bleed a lot on the hand, but the hand and the face and all that. But anyway, that's another story. But talk about killing all the flora in your gut. I have a doctor brother. He's very sympathetic and he's very comfortable just doling out drugs. What sort of a drug do you need? Well, tetracyclines, please. I would like to carry a lot of tetras. He was remarkably relaxed. Today people aren't. But in his era, 30, 40 years ago. So when I visited him once and I was getting a boil, I said, I'm getting a boil. Oh, what do you need? Oh, probably a tetracycline will take care of that. Well, a boil is starting to get red. I could tell I'm getting a boil because of this special itching. And when I get that special itching, damn, I'm going to get a boil. And I go to a normal doctor. What do you mean you're going to have a boil? I don't see it. Then I got to come back a week later with a full-fledged boil. But that's good. That's another story. I learned boils are the way to detoxify yourself. So the curse that you get, that's the fast way the body gets rid. I was always anemic because I was deficient in iron. Unfortunately, an old doctor finally I go to a doctor. I'm saying, I'd like to, I got a boil. I'd like some, medication for this. And he gives me the medication. He says, eat a handful of raisins every time you think of it. You'll never have another boil. And I never had another boil after that. Nosebleeds. Man, I just thought, nosebleed. My nose is bleeding. If a doctor says, go give blood. Well, I give blood 20 times and the nosebleeds stop. And I've hardly had a nosebleed. Every time nosebleeds start up, I go donate blood and away it goes. So there was these simple things everybody should know without having to consult a doctor. Well, anyway, I learned that tetracyclines just completely kill all the flora in your body. And I know that because of the certain type of feces that was produced. Kind of looks like you've overeaten too much bannock. Kind of that color. You eat a lot of bannock, you get a kind of a whitish brown feces, and you have a distress that is alleviated. That if you know you're going to do that, go to the health food store, get that acidophilus and whatever, and read whatever they have to reconstitute the flora. What am I using this for? I'm a consultant on farting. There are people that fart so bad that it's a social problem to them. They probably will never get married, and they're so vile and everything. And I say, you got to clear the flora out of your system. Well, how do I do that? And when you clear the flora, then go through that, and the likelihood the bugs that you acquired that create that problem are going to be eliminated, and then you reset the clock. Well, anyway, I'm using tetracycline. I'm going to write an article on garlic. Garlic will kill everything in your gut if you know how to use it. Garlic, everybody who is educated should know how to use garlic. There's no question about its positive benefits, but you've got to have a curse, and that you've got to marry a girl that also likes garlic, and things like that. Yeah. But the garlic, if you take garlic in a certain way, you got a sore throat. You might peel the garlic and play with it in your mouth, and as you swallow, that'll do a lot of good. You've got something further down, maybe in your ulcers. You take the garlic, chew it up really as fast as you can, and swallow it, and it'll work in the stomach. You feel you got something down in the small intestine. You peel the garlic, and then swallow it whole. You got something in the colon. Leave that tough skin on there, and swallow it, and it'll go further down your system. But take a holiday where you're well away from people because you're going to make their eyes water. If you're he's carrying two pails of a white milky substance. He's got like 2 cans of paint. People see that. So he's got lots of room to maneuver because people take one look at him. He can't have a sign and say, stay away from me. He's carrying 2 pails, open pails of paint or something. Maybe it was just, something white, people bumped on him, but the people sure gave him room. Well, that garlic. Well, anyway, if you eat enough garlic, it'll kill all the flora because you're going to get the same reaction that you get when you use tetracycline. And I did that accidentally with florets as well. One day I had a job, and I had to get this job done. I started early in the morning, and by the time it was midnight, I completed that job, and I didn't have time to eat. There was nobody to go get me a pizza and everything, but I had lots of florets. And every time the hunger pains got unbearable, I'd chew on a florets. And in that, 12 hours, again, snappily, crackly, poppily, identical to tetracycline. The same distress. And I realized, and then from then on, my prescription always was, if you got that problem, if you don't care for garlic, just, chew on the florets until you feel there is no more flavor left. No, use 2 at once. 2 florets, flavor lost, 2 florets, flavor lost. And after a while, you'll find that when you go to the bathroom, you've got that there. Now you've cleared your gut. Now you might reset the clock, and maybe you're not going to have that problem with flatulence. But anyway.
What do you think's in the florets?
Chlorophyll.
Oh, just the chlorophyll.
Yeah, I think the green florets, the chlorophyll, yeah. Chlorophyll, if you read it up, it's I don't know, it's probably got other benefits, but I never looked that up. But, maybe a lot of the benefits of eating green plants is the chlorophyll, as well as the nutrition that's in the plant. But my brother, I didn't have much money, so he gave me the money for the first year of university, hoping that maybe I might become a doctor. He was always encouraging me to become highly educated. but you don't find his name on the internet anymore. He's an orthopedic surgeon, and he's not really known that much. But anyway, so what did I do? I spent all my time in the medical library reading. I read for 2 years. So when I talk medicine, I'm not talking out of taking a first aid course. I mean, I was well read in, you know, the terminologies and the words and everything were just.
Students don't read the book.
Yeah, the students don't read the books.
They just read the cliff notes for the test.
Yeah, well.
Enough to pass the test. That's all you do.
Well, the other day I go to a thrift store, and there's a bundle of books for pre-med. And they're like, I think it just, I don't know if it's connected with discs or anything, but there were these books, biology, physics, and I look at it and it's like what a doctor should know to pass their tests. It was $205 for that bundle, and somebody had used it and put it in the, and it's, I like it because it isolates out that sort of stuff, but yeah.